I did it right. We'll see. Lynette, I am in WhatsApp if you need me. What did I do wrong? It's not showing go live. There it is. I think I did it. Tell me if you're seeing me. I'm like, okay. Hello. Don't see it yet on my end, but it'll come up. There I am. Let me grab this. We'll get going here, y'all. About the chat. I click things around here like I know what I'm doing. I do not. How about Facebook? Hi, hi, FB. I don't know how other platforms are going to like it if I actually start saying other platform names. Hi, Heather. It's good to see you. Thank you for sharing the live. Hey, it's me. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for that. If we did this right, we're live on four platforms. Did we do it? Can y'all hear me okay? Everybody's saying it's working. Well, it's not because of anything I did. I have amazing. Everybody deserves to have a Jared in their lives. He's like we claim him as our son. So, hello everyone. Good, you can see me. Go, yes, please go check YT. I'm also over on Substack because that's actually my preferred platform. But don't tell anybody. When this thing starts, when this TikTok run has been fun, as they say, but y'all, how much longer is it going to stay live? I don't know. Yeah, I'm live. Let me just enjoy this. It's kind of like a new car. Yeah, thank you, Lorna. You see me over on YT as well. I appreciate that. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. I really do appreciate it. So they're not happy with me over here. We've only got 7 people in here. Not that I don't love and appreciate all of you. That's kind of crazy. You got in a platform of over 700,000, and we have 8 people in our. So I must have said something that they do not like. I think I know what I said, and they're not liking us here. I don't care. We're just going to keep going. We'll see how things go. I do have some questions prepared. Yeah, Heather, it's kind of surreal here. Everything that's going on inside the United States and even around the world. I'm an hour into Trump's. I'll give you many likes to boost you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm an hour into Trump's speech yesterday that he gave for his Board of Peace, which is just an outrageous waste of time, and his commitment that the United States is going to donate $10 billion, which we don't even think that he has the authorization to do so, nor any clear directive of where that money's coming from. You know, one of the things I'd love to ask MAGA Christians, how are y'all today? Or how are y'all doing? The people who wanted us out of the United Nations, are you good with the fact that we're going to start apparently our own competing World Health Organization, as well as now we have this Board of Peace that arbitrarily is deciding what it's going to do on behalf of the United Nations? This is the definition of absolutely insanity. I'm getting an error message that I don't understand, so we're not going to worry about it. Thank you so much for all the shares. Remus, that's Bream X us. Thank you I appreciate that. Yeah, I've done something with 10 people in here. It all looks good. And we've got 11 people in here. We're gonna keep going. How are we doing on the other platforms? I can't see y'all. I haven't figured out how. I think I need one more monitor so I can see how everything looks. Because I do have some content. I have a couple of questions here that I'm going to answer today. One of them is there was a big response to the video I did on no longer being a Christian. I think there's a lot of people either assumed I was a Christian minister. Thank you for the gift, whatever that was. That was very nice. I was a Christian minister, or that I had a church or something like that, because, people come in at different times, even though I've been talking quite a bit for many years about my deconstructing journey. Of course, I wrote about it in my book, but people just assume that they understand your story based on their own experiences, and that's just human nature. We all do that. So I'm speaking more openly about these newer phases, I guess, the latest phases of my deconstructing, which is untethering completely from my Christian heritage. So I did get quite a few questions from that. Some of those I've answered, and I will continue to do so. But I did get one question. You know how I love all the affirming questions, just like most content creators. You're looking for the people that align with you, that support you. That's who you're talking to. I don't think the vast majority of us are here to try to be so antagonistic that is what our content is about, is to be highly controversial. I mean, with a few exceptions, of course, which I think we all know who those people are. But when somebody opposes you or says something that's so ridiculously outrageous or so different than what your video is about, it's a wonderful educational opportunity to push back on that video. So that's what we're getting ready. That's what I want to do today with someone who made a comment on my "You are not a Christian." I'm halfway tempted because we're only at 14. I mean, we were pushing 100 before. I think I'm going to stop this live. I'm going to keep the other 3 platforms going for those of you who are there. I'm going to keep those going, but I'm going to stop this live. Something's wrong. They're not happy. We're going to stop it and come back into it. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to come right back into this live, and we're going to see if I can figure out if I did a setting wrong or something, just to set the stage for guest. No, I'm not doing that. Sometimes I just think they want us to do cartwheels and do all the fun things and have us battle and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'll see you back on TikTok in a minute. Yeah, I'm gonna hop out, come back in, and see if that doesn't help reset the algorithm. See if we can make it a little more happier with this. I'll be right back. All right. Here, we're going to try this. Those of you hanging out on the other platforms, thank you so much for your patience. We're just trying this out. I'm glad it worked. I feel like I said, I feel like a kid in a candy shop with all these wonderful things. It's hard for me to see all of you in those places, but once we get going, I think it's going to be a really great way to interact with all y'all. We'll see. Hello, hello. All right. Thank you for coming on in. Let's get started. We're going to go. I was talking about this question that I got on my video I did about why I'm no longer a Christian. So we're going to answer this question. So somebody asked me on TikTok, what am I now a reverend of? If I'm no longer a Christian, then what am I a reverend of? And that's a valid question. What does it mean? Are you there, Lynette?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. I think I'm good. But there's two parts to my response. So once somebody asks me, what are you a reverend of if you are no longer a Christian? And that's a legit question. I don't have any problem with that kind of question, but another comment came in, and I'm going to answer these at the same time. So this person says, I, as a Christian, respect your choice, as it's your free will, but you're no longer a reverend if you're not Christian. May you have a blessed life. I have so much to say about that comment. But I'm going to start with the first part that I said of the person who said, what are you a reverend of? So I am, to clear it up, I'm not a Christian minister. I started in a Christian ministry program, but I left church before I finished that program. And then I went back to college, and then I went into seminary. But the seminary I chose was an interfaith, interspiritual seminary, because that's how far my deconstructing had taken me. I had already decided I did not want to be a Christian minister. I wanted something different. I knew I wanted to be something for people who were on a similar journey as I was. What would I have wanted or needed? Who would I have wished had been there for me when I started deconstructing? Was then the training that I went and received. Good. Hey, Nathan. Hi, it's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. So I'm an ordained interfaith, interspiritual minister. And so that is my ordination. And my title from that ordination, my 2-year seminary program, is a reverend. So the title of Reverend isn't just exclusive to a Christian-centric ordination. So that is where the I guess the confusion or the clarification comes from. So what my ordination means is it recognizes that the sacred, the holy, is not owned just by Christianity, and spirituality is not dependent on any church or denominational credentials. It does not mean that I'm an expert on any religious system. It doesn't mean I'm a spokesperson for them. It doesn't mean that I'm ordained by any of them. I do not speak on their behalf. It was really about learning about these religions so that it was part of the deconstructing process. So when you've been, especially there were many of us who were coming out of high control evangelical Christianity. So this was really eye-opening to learn about all these world religions. So that's what interfaith means, is that you respect that at the core of these religious traditions, there's an element of wisdom that's somewhere in their heritage, in their beginnings, whatever you want to call that. At its core is an element of truth, of a sacred intention. I'm not talking, you hear me push back a lot about organized religion and some of the problem that I have with it, especially in my religious heritage of evangelical Christianity. But I'm talking about just my ordination now. So it was important for me to have an ordination where I could meet people where they were. Because like I said, when I started thinking about my training, I wanted something that I know would have helped me in my early days of deconstructing, and that's who I wanted to be. So the difference between interfaith and interspiritual is, interfaith is focused on religious traditions. Interspiritual says that spirituality can and does exist outside of organized religion. And that's kind of where I find myself more than anything. I've kind of gone away as someone who's not looking for any kind of organized religion to really hold the space of where of who I am, or needing that type of community. I'm not saying that it'll be like that forever, but where I am now, it's not needed for me. It's not for everybody. A solitude spirituality is not for everyone, but it works for me. So I'm happy with it. So as you know, if you have followed me for a while, my work now centers on helping people who have been harmed by high control religion, especially white American Christian patriarchy, and learning how to rebuild their spiritual lives outside of that framework. And whether or not that means that you'll go back into a spiritual community or you'll end up being unchurched and just spiritual but not religious, however that ends up showing up for you, that's what we try to help you explore. So I do not represent a denomination. I do not represent any spiritual community other than what you might call that we have here. That's as close as we got. Welcome to church. Welcome to church. We're here again. Now, can I officiate weddings and funerals and baptisms, end of life care? Yes, I've done all of that. I have done all of that in some way, shape, or form. And that that does not bother me who has problems with it. I can tell you, like, there are people who say, how dare you think that you can baptize somebody? There are different ways and reasons to create rituals around what people are being baptized for. And those are very private and very personal rituals that I will not share on a public platform. One of my favorite things to do is to officiate weddings of people. Somebody's going to be offended by these words, but let me try to get this out without you being offended. Okay, so take a breath. Okay, here we go. My favorite thing to do is to create a ritual around some significant, poignant life event where someone who's been harmed by some kind of religious tradition, and I now get the opportunity to show them that something can be sacred and meaningful without the inclusion of a God that harmed them. That's one of my favorite things. Now, having said that, I don't have a lot of time for weddings and funerals and things, so I'm not available for hire. It's just something that I've decided not to do, and I really only do it for people who know me in person through different ways. And it also means that depending on your state, it doesn't mean that all interfaith ministers can officiate weddings or officiate anything that requires a clergy signature or a clerk's office signature or something like that. It depends on your state. And I believe that as time goes on, that's even going, if we continue this walk into fascism, that's going to continue to get worse. That's going to get tightened up. I predict that. So I left Christianity as a religious system. I did not abandon my commitment to compassion, to integrity, a reverence for life. As a matter of fact, I think that as I left and deconstructed, I expanded. Those things expanded for me because I no longer was trying to contort myself to fit into a religious system that was very restrictive for me. This fits me. This fits my journey more so than anything else. So this ordination, this Reverend ordination is not about a denomination. It's not about a rigid theology. It's not about any of the. If I had to say one thing, it's about tending to souls, especially those who were told that they were bitter, confused, their doubt was causing them sin. Anybody like that, I want to help them reclaim their spirituality after a lot of times we don't even realize we kind of relinquished it. We gave it over to religion and said, here, you tend to this for a while. You take this over. So if someone who really categorizes spirituality and conflates that with religion, this is going to be very confusing for people. It doesn't make them comfortable. Like a lot of times they'll come back to me and ask me all kinds of questions because it just does not make sense. They consider anybody sitting outside of organized religion as practicing spiritual light. And I very much take offense to anything like that. Some of the hardest work I have ever done to work on myself, my inner strength, my releasing the things that no longer serve my highest good happened outside of church. It wasn't because of the things I was doing in church. It was outside of church. I always say that people knew the work that was going to go into an interfaith seminary, they wouldn't do it. I thought I was going there to learn all about world religions. It was a lot more than that. It was about cleaning up, cleaning house, getting rid of the things that you needed to get rid of to make you be prepared to hold the space for people in a way that was meaningful. Understanding what it meant to be, to create sacred moments in the lived experience. And I did not get that at all. Bree, that sounds wonderful. Thank you, Hannah. I'm glad you're here. I like my church too. Now to the part 2 of that question, which was the second way that it was phrased by another commenter. And she said, I'm assuming it's a she. It sounds like a she. I'm sorry. It sounds like a Christian Karen. Maybe it's a Christian Ken. I don't know. I, as a Christian, respect your choice as it's your free will, but you're no longer a reverend if you're not Christian. May you have a blessed life. Okay. Let's go there. This is part 2 of the same question. So now you get sassy, Rev Carla. But you know, I can, you toss it to me, I can hit it back. So here we go. So this comment assumes that Christianity has exclusive ownership over the title of Reverend, and it does not. That assumption, it reflects this person's arrogance, but also their ignorance, because this is the indoctrination inside Christianity. So this person is just spewing back what, thank you, Lynette. This person is just spewing back what they've been taught, that this is her right to come in, pretend like she's being nice while she's throwing judgment at you all over the place. And obviously it's not respect. When she says, I'm going to respect your choice, that's the last thing she's doing. That is the absolute last thing this person is doing, but she's going to gaslight us all over the place, okay? So what she's doing here is very much intentional, but you may not recognize it if this was part of your belief system. You may actually believe that someone has the right to speak to you as disrespectful as this person is speaking to us, because this is the way people talked in church, right? This is the way your pastor may have talked to you. This is the way your mentor may have talked to you. And it is absolutely disrespectful, it's gaslighting, and it's ignorant. So as I said in the first part of this answer, the title of Reverend is used across several traditions. This person is just ignorant to that, or the fact that interfaith, interspiritual clergy do exist, and depending on their seminary affiliation, they'll decide what your credentials, what your title will be after you have completed your requirements for ordination. Now, and I'll be honest with you, there were many of us who were not happy with the title of Reverend. And I bet you if you were raised Southern Baptist, you know why. I bet there has to be a Southern Baptist in here somewhere. I wish I could see all the chats. Has to be. I can tell you right now, somebody has to tell me why I would have problems as a former Southern Baptist, why you can't be called a Reverend. And why we argued about it. And I just thought, well, I won't use it. I'm not going to use it. I just won't use the title. I'm going to get my education, but I'm not going to use the title. No one? So it's because, I'm going to wait a few more seconds. There has to be somebody here. It's because Jesus was the only one who could have the title of Reverend. And I mean, that was, you also heard it in, no one was supposed to be a pastor. Sometimes they were just called ministers. That was part of the Christian indoctrination, America Recovery. I'm here, Southern Baptist. Hey, Marcia. So you had these different teachings around who could have what title, and no one else was supposed to be called Reverend except Jesus. I mean, we fought. There were people like, no, we're not going to do this. But then after spending time with the founder of the seminary and understanding why they chose that the title, it softened for me. I got it, and I thought, well, if I am, yes, Paul, thank you. If I am leaving the church, which I had at that time, and I knew I wasn't going to be a Christian minister, why wouldn't I accept the fact that I've done this work and it's really hard, and this is going to be my credentials when I leave? And so why do I say I can deconstruct from this but not from that? So after a while, I was able to get more comfortable with it. And obviously I'm comfortable with it. I'm comfortable with it now. So this declaration of this commenter saying that I'm no longer a reverend because I stepped outside the framework of Christianity, it reveals how deep some Christians believe they are the gatekeepers of what is spiritual legitimacy. So in other words, they only have the right to say, well, I say this without all due respect. And you could just see the smile coming through the comment. I say this with all respect, but you are no longer a Christian. I'm sorry, you are no longer a reverend if you're not a Christian. So what she's saying there is, I get to define what reverend means, which you can within your denomination. They can decide however they're going to use that title within their denomination, but they do not get to redefine mine. It doesn't matter. So the fact that I was a ordained reverend through my interfaith minister had nothing to do with the fact that I still identified as a Christian. I still held on to the tenets of my Christian faith. There are many people who are ordained interfaith, interspiritual ministers who are working in some kind of Christian context. She would be shocked to learn that, and I guarantee probably not in her denomination, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. It's just the ignorance that often happens. And I'm not using that insultingly. I mean without knowledge. But when you have been conditioned, your entire indoctrination is to teach you to either be spoon-fed from the pulpit, to only read the Bible, or scholars who 100% align with the literal, infallible word of the Bible, and you only turn to church leaders for guidance, you're not going to know anything about this stuff. You're going to believe that anything that sits outside of that little bubble is evil. It's of the devil. It's of the world, however you want to frame it. So she thinks that this spiritual superiority that she is lording over me, even though she says it with respect in her words, she has the right to do that. So saying, where she says, quote, I respect your free will while revoking my title in the same sentence is showing how she believes that she has the right to control me. And that has nothing to do with respect. Again, she does not respect my free will. She still feels like she has the right to judge me in some way, shape, or form. And this is absolutely gaslighting. This is 100% spiritual gaslighting. There's like, in such a small sentence, there's like, we could do a whole lesson on this comment about the effectiveness and the undertones inside spiritual gaslighting, because that's exactly what it is. So interfaith ministries and these kinds of seminaries, they exist precisely because spirituality is about transcending religious boundaries. These types of educational opportunities and ordination credentials are for the very people like me who probably either had a bad experience or felt a longing to understand something outside the framework of their religious heritage that said there's got to be something more than what's here. So I zipped a little here. I said, I'll add that more people are leaving church, but not Christianity, yet seeking guidance from people like me to heal from belief systems and people like her. Hear that again. So, we know people are leaving church and still trying to hold on to things that were meaningful or made sense or sacred to them, but yet they will feel more connected to me to heal from that very belief system that they're still trying to find something to hold on to, and to heal from people like her. Just go look in the comments of my latest video. Just go look at the comments of the people that they say. Every time I do a video on abuse, religious trauma or something, the stories come forth. And it's absolutely heartbreaking. So I will also say where she says, have a blessed life immediately after dismissing my credentials, that is another form of gaslighting. Because what she's implying there is this moral high ground. In the discussion, I came in, I said what I wanted to in the most disparaging, disrespectful way, but I'm going to tell you to have a blessed life. Because I, in my position of spiritual authority, just because I'm a Christian and nothing else, I'm going to tell you that you are disqualified as a minister. I'm going to tell you that I respect your free will, even though I clearly don't. And now I'm going to tell you to have a blessed life, because I have the right to do all of that just because of the title of Christian and nothing else. Do you see the levels of disrespect? And you wonder why you left church? You wonder why you deconstruct? That's the person that you left in the pews? That's the person that's still supposed to be what Jesus is patting on the back for, saying, well done, good and faithful servant, because you smacked her down by making that comment. Is that what we think Jesus is happy about? Is that what we all doing the good work of the Lord? Because this person is elevated to some kind of Christian champion? Doesn't that make you feel good to know they're still there, y'all? They're not changing. They will continue to double down in their arrogance and holding on to their ignorance and thinking they're doing the work of their Lord. In case you didn't know what spiritual gaslighting is, that's it. Take that comment, break it down, and you're going to be able to clear up really quickly in your life who's gaslighting you. Because there's like 3 or 4 examples in that comment alone of gaslighting and arrogance. You take that and apply it to your own life, and you're going to know within minutes who's gaslighting you and who you need to either get out, protect yourself from, or start pushing back on, depending on what the circumstances of that relationship. So her gaslighting implies that she has a right to a moral high ground while dismissing my credentials and my lived experience. And my work centers on the unchurched, the deconstructing, and the spiritually curious. All 3 that she feels spiritually superior over. All 3. I mean, right? That's a direct, you can look at the direct lineage. If I'm being dismissed, then you are too. It's just that simple. She would look at you and say the same thing. Have a blessed day. I'll pray for you. We can see it, can't we? Maybe with a little of the hair, right? Am I right? If someone cannot imagine a reverend outside of Christianity, that limitation belongs to their theological framework. Let me see where I am. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Respect acknowledges differences without attempting to correct it. Anything less is simply an attempt to preserve your perceived spiritual superiority, which is a false narrative. You own nothing about who I am. You own nothing about who I am. Nothing. I'm not looking back at the church for validation. I have peace in knowing that I no longer ask for their permission for anything. The only validation I get is knowing like I made the right decision, because I could not take another women's breakfast with somebody like that and having to smile and swallow your words at the toxic, caustic things they hurled and called that God's love. We don't need it. We're better than that. Oh, somebody, Violet, I see your comment on YT. I love the wood box your lamp is on. I don't think they can see it on TikTok, but is this it? Is this what you're talking about? Thank you. I think I picked that up at like a thrift store or something. I think that's what you're talking about. All right, moving on. Any other comments? Hi, Dr. Danny. I was ordained for 20 years. I'm now Muslim. My practice is my goal. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Always respect and honor people who have deconstructed and moved on to another organized religion. I'm glad you're here. Paul says, I'm glad I left the church. I'm glad you're here too, Paul. Peter, I was never confirmed Catholic, so grateful. Yeah, thank you for being here. Lynette, are you getting ready to type me something? Thank you for sharing your insights and experience. Okay, thank you from good old Facebook. Hey, at least I'm having trouble seeing all the comments, y'all. And I'm afraid that if I saw them all, I would really get distracted. And maybe that's what we'll need to do, is figure out a panel where I can see them. This is the first day we're doing this, so it's really fun. I'm enjoying this. Are we ready to move on to the next question? Are you all enjoying this format? If so, I'm going to go on to the next question. I'm already, 40 some minutes into this live. This was a question that I'm going to come to that comment in just a minute from Substack. Hi, Lucas. I'm glad you're here. Use OBS. I am on OBS, but I am really intimidated, Dr. Danny. I don't even know where it is right now. Oh my God. I entertain myself. I don't know where it is. It's around here somewhere. I got so many tabs open. Okay, let's get on to this question. This came from, we are having too much fun. We are. This is so much fun. This question came from a comment. Lynette, you told me and now I forgot it. Let me pull it up real quick. Which Substack was that? Give me 1 second. Oh, so someone commented on our last live stream. Those get loaded in their entirety to YT and Substack. So someone had viewed it and asked a question, and I really like this question. It said, the animosity I received for asking the hard questions was the beginning of the end for me with regard to religion. Why questions? How could one be expected to believe in their curiosity if their curiosity was discouraged? And what are they hiding? So this is in context of, again, high control, evangelical, patriarchal, very much entrenched in patriarchal structure. So that's very much the American evangelical, radical, religious, Christian right experience. Okay, so I think this is really interesting because you don't know how many people I know started to really deconstruct when they started reading the Bible for themselves and not able to reconcile the God that they were meeting. And oftentimes, you know, we were taught so much about the new covenant with Jesus that all of the old, what we called the Old Testament, which is still very much a vibrant Bible in the Judaism, that when you try to reconcile that, because it's very easy to reach back into the Christian Old Testament to weaponize that scripture for judgment or control of people. So then when you start to actually read it and try to reconcile it with the faith and the teachings, you start to feel the conflict for yourself, and you don't have the pastor sitting there right there to answer. So I remember my husband and I went to lunch with some pastors from our church, and my husband for the first time was reading the Bible through and asking some pretty direct questions about the violence. Yeah, the violence and the laws, and are we really doing this to people? They had no answers. They actually laughed at him. They laughed at him. They didn't have any answers. Like, well, take it for face value. Well, they had no answers. And he was shocked. And you know, his deconstructing journey is different than mine, but to see that up close, especially when it was at a place where you have the opportunity, you see someone who's really sitting and wanting to understand the Bible, and the only thing they can come up with is laughing at you, like you're mocking them for being, this is the first time that you've read the Bible through and through as an adult. Well, again, the way the Bible was taught to you was oftentimes in chunks that was relevant to the obedience training that you were receiving. So in some ways, you were never taught to read it that way unless you were going back and just reading it in the historical context, not so much that you had to apply it to your life in any way, shape, or form. So I think that the beginning of the end, as this person was commenting, it does start you start questioning when you actually start looking into the text, and you do not have permission to ask those questions. You aren't seen as someone who's important enough, or that you have enough experience or education to be challenging anything that's being poured into you from church leaders or the pulpit. So it's looked at in two ways. You're not prioritized. Don't waste church leaders' time on these questions, versus you're not educated enough to be able to understand what you're saying. So you always have this type of conflict. And then how many of us then ended up being told that we had this spirit of offense, or we were doubting Thomas, or we had that we had something wrong with us that was causing our faith to be weak, and we simply just couldn't understand. And so when someone says that to you, you're going to stop asking questions, because then you're being called out for something that shows that you are less than. And that's exactly what they want to do, because the truth is, you're starting to see the cracks. You're starting to sense. And what you're actually asking for is some stucco to strengthen the wall. You're not trying to finagle through it. You just want to understand it. You're trying to build something in that can be the foundation of your faith. But anything to them looks like a threat. I think I saw a comment. Implosion, I think you're right. Now, I'm not a scholar. Implosion says, I think there are multiple gods in the Bible: Thor, Ra, Zeus, Aphrodite, and more. Yes. Yes, I love to listen to scholars. I don't know if you've ever watched Deconstruction Zone, Justin, or In Growth Thinker. They're amazing. I love them. I take notes when I listen to them, and they know their stuff. That's for sure. Okay, so let me get back to this. So just so for those of you who have that in your past in some way, shape, or form, curiosity is not the enemy. Let me rephrase this. Curiosity should not be the enemy of faith. Your curiosity, your questions, your doubts, your fears, any of that, none of that should be enemy of faith. So you think about even like parenting, if you think about the whole phrase, that's even in the Bible, I think it's in Matthew and Mark, about having faith like a child, approaching your faith, which how many of us have heard sermons about that? You talk about the hypocrisy in it, because we're supposed to approach our faith with innocence and openness and a desire for guidance. But oftentimes that's not what we were met with. Oftentimes it was exactly our questions were turned against us, where we were then said that the very questions that we were asking showed that we were going down the wrong road. That we weren't listening, either we weren't good listeners, we weren't listening to the message. I remember one time being told to record the lessons, to audio record them so that I would get a better understanding and go home and take notes. And guess what? I did it. I did it thinking it's on me. It's all me. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Thank you for the gifts too. You guys, you're so nice. Okay, so those questions are how we grow. Those questions are how we continue to walk in our spirituality. I want to stay where because I'm now talking to a deconstructing group where the whole definition of faith changes. At least it did for me, which is what I was trying to do with using it in the title of my book. I kind of wish I hadn't used it now. I feel like it went over some people's heads. But when the people in authority, when people in authority treat your questions as rebellion, or they judge you, or they say that you have doubt, instead of an opportunity for engagement, an educational opportunity, that tells you that they value obedience over transformation. So you think about that in your own spiritual community. If that's happening to you now, why are you there? What value are you getting out of a spiritual community that suppresses curiosity and questioning over obedience? If that's happening in your personal life in any way, shape, or form, I would encourage you to look at your relationships as well. Moving on, high control religious systems, they rely on that to maintain authority. So if you think back on when we talk about high control religious systems, so we're talking about a lot of times that fundamentalist, evangelical, conservative type Christianity. Each one of those is defined differently, but I try to put them all together in a bucket so you understand that any one of those types of systems still rely on Christian patriarchy. So in order for that to be effective, they're going to use the same kind of weaponizing, weaponizing tactics to keep people compliant. So you have a cookie cutter approach to how you teach how you teach about the Bible, how you teach the kids. Now, in order to be effective to some degree, you have to have that. If you think about like a school system or things like that, or if you have 3 or 4 kids in a household, there are certain things that you have to do in order to maintain, like, to have any kind of structure or anything like that. That's understandable. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's when you put curiosity or questioning that gets suppressed in order to keep people compliant. And you'll see that in the more higher control Christian churches. And those are the ones especially who hide their finances. The ones where you're not quite sure how the pastors are chosen. What is their educational experience? How are the deacons chosen? How are things governed? So the more all of that is locked down, the more control you're going to see that they're putting over the church proper. You're going to see it in how they, the order of service. You're going to see how they do even coffee hour. You're going to see how they create community around even Sunday schools, vacation Bible school. All of it is very, very highly regulated in order to make sure that no one feels like they can wiggle through and be the exception because that one person who's not following the order that's put in place becomes a problem. And they could become attractive to someone saying, oh, I hadn't thought of something that way. Well, if XYZ is this way, well, then XYZ could be this way too. And then all of a sudden you have a bunch of people who are no longer compliant, and non-compliant people are not going to tithe. Non-compliant people are going to ask where their money's going. Non-compliant people are going to ask for financial accountability. Non-compliant people are going to ask, like, what do you mean? Just because I'm questioning you, my salvation is in peril. They're going to start putting things together that don't make sense anymore. Shadow work is required. Yes, Southern G, that's very good. Very good. Excellent answer. My grandson used to say that all the time. So, if belief cannot stand honest inquiry, what's actually being protected here? What is being protected if you cannot ask questions? So, and a lot of times you'll also see it in a patriarchal religious system where they will ask you to bring your questions privately. That's a red flag. Why is that? Because if you're being asked to come in and ask your questions to church leaders or the pastor, then they can control the answer. They're not going to be accountable to the answer to the group. They're only going to be accountable to you. And a lot of times that will come with some kind of request for confidentiality. They'll build into it some kind of relationship bond between you and the pastor. I've seen that happen. I've seen that happen quite often. That also leads into a dependency of the congregational member to depend on the pastor for guidance. I don't know how and I'll be the first to admit it. It even used to be me that would say, I need to go talk to my pastor. Something happened in my life. I need to go talk to my pastor. Yeah, that was me. I did that. So, belief that requires suppression of curiosity, this is that in no way is that built on trust. That is always about compliance. So the beginning of your end with Christianity may actually have been the beginning of intellectual and spiritual integrity. Let me say that again because I kind of messed it up. The beginning of your end with religion may actually have been the beginning of intellectual and spiritual integrity. So, got that. Be Besides has a good besides. Yeah, I'm sorry. You have a good question. You were here the other day. Thanks for being here again. Are those last few statements about questions and dependency with regard to questions in your book? No, they are not. But that's a good question. I do have some stuff in my book, don't I? As a matter of fact, I was in my book on my chapter on what am I going to do about Jesus, because someone asked me on my video on that I'm no longer a Christian. Someone asked me, am I saying that God, Jesus, and the Bible aren't real? And those are just such big questions. Like, I can just feel someone's 9-year-old self in that question. I feel their fear. I fear they're like, what are you saying? You're blowing my mind here with what you're saying in this video. And so I needed to go back and revisit some of the things I wrote, because I remember that chapter was really hard for me to write. And what I remembered is the title of it is, what am I going to do about Jesus? And for the first half of the chapter, I don't even answer the question, because it was so much a part of my journey to say, like, just living that question. Living that question might be something I do for the rest of my life. So those questions are about that. They kind of flow with you. And so I think this was more about, me just answering this person's question about the beginning of the end. What was the beginning of the end of your deconstructing, so that you kind of knew this was the beginning of the end of my relationship with being in church, being with Christianity, wherever you are on your deconstructing journey. Or is this, who am I now if this isn't what who the church says I am? If I can't get these questions answered there because I was punished, I was seen as adversarial, where out here can I get those questions answered? And I think for me, like, the answer to those questions have changed with time and time again. They've just changed. I wrote last week that I don't see myself in some of the videos I did 5 years ago. I don't see myself in the writings. I don't see that. I don't wear my sweatshirt anymore if God is big enough to share, because I'm not sure who or what God is anymore. Because that Christian-centric God, I've deconstructed from completely now. I don't see that God worth worshiping anymore. So it's different for all of us. Yeah. Someone asked to show. Sure, happy to show it to you. You can also get a signed copy on the TikTok shop. Can you see it? That's me. Silver says, I like to tell people, just because you turn around doesn't mean you aren't still moving forward. That's beautiful, Silver. That's really a great quote. Thank you. Thank you, Wings of a Magpie. Thank you for buying that. Who said God changed because you did? It's a beautiful growth and you are loved. We are here. Thank you, Dr. Danny. That's very sweet. That's very sweet. Thank you. Hi, Tori. Hi. Hi. How are you? Hello, beautiful soul. So good to see you. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to wrap this up. This has been wonderful. I do have another question. I'll be back next week. Do you like me bringing questions here? Wings, I'm going to end this with that conversation about community. I'm going to end it with your comment. I think that's a good place to live. We do have a comment on Substack. It just seems like most organized religions require us to scorn others that don't have the same beliefs, causing hate, even wars. I've told this before. That's a good comment. I've told this before, that we had in one of my churches was an 8-week study on what was wrong with all other world religions. And it was standing room only for 8 weeks. You had to get there early to get to get a seat, or you were standing up along the wall. We were so hungry to know why we were right. And so when you think back, for those of you who were here at the beginning of this live, where I said the person who said, with all due respect, you're not a Christian, you're not a reverend, that is the type of teaching that fills you with such an arrogance that you really, really believe in your spiritual superiority. You cannot help it that you're part of the exclusive Christian club. The rest of y'all are just ignorant. I'll say it with a smile on my face, but you're going to hell, honey. God loves you. It teaches you, it's such a toxic indoctrination, but they are literally hell-bent on making sure and reinforcing that level of arrogance and that level of ignorance. Because you have your entire church administration on the front taking turns teaching aspects of this. You feel like you're being fed by God himself with all this knowledge. So you talk about keeping you compliant and obedient. So when you think about the level of commitment to a system to keep people compliant, it's impressive. And if you want to know why we are where we are right now in this country with a bunch of people who don't believe what's coming out in the files, or that we're not being administered by a criminal president, that's why. That level of indoctrination is intense. Intense. They don't want you. That's the reason why you could be at the church 7 days a week. They don't want you to have a relationship outside of church. That's why they have everything happening at church, especially these mega church campuses, where everything you do can be through a relationship that's established in church. It's all intentional. Hey, Heather. Jesus was not a liberal. Thank you, Western. Like, we need to know anything about politics, about what Jesus politics. Oh, it's okay, honey. You're welcome anytime you want to come back. All right, we're gonna end with there you go, Wings. He sure was. Where did it go? I lost it. Yeah, Jolly Green, there's no way Jesus was a conservative. Let's see, where are we? Where did it go? Wings of a Magpie. The hardest part of me is losing community. And thank you, Surefly. The hardest part of deconstructing is losing community. I know there are so many people feeling that comment. The hardest part for me is losing community. And I did write about that in my book. I wrote about how leaving church, first of all, I felt like I'm going to go to hell. I'm going to go to hell. I still believed in a literal hell at the time, and I was being disobedient because I just completely turned my back on the very foundation of my church, was that I needed to be in church if the church doors were open. Number one, I was being disobedient to church leaders. I wasn't being fed by the Spirit because I believed that the Spirit could only exist in church. But yet here I was sobbing on my front porch. And my entire contact list, my entire text stream went silent. Because I was the kind of person who not only volunteered, I was a leader at the church, I had the church keys, I was there sometimes 7 days a week. So when I left, I lost all that. And I'm not saying that to say that my experience is harder than yours. I'm saying I know what you're going through and what that feels like when you lose not only your belief system starts to rattle, you realize that the only reason you have the community is that you're compliant to that belief system. And that's enough to keep people quiet in the pews. That's enough because it terrifies people. I have heard from people from years, primarily women my age and older, who fear leaving because they have nothing else. They have no support system outside, but they cannot stand what their church stands for. They cannot stand the way what they've done to kids. They can't stand the way they hide abusers. All the things that she has watched her church do, they have watched their church do, and they have no choice but to stay because they rely on their family so much. So in my book, I talk about the spiritual wilderness, which I do believe it's a necessary part of deconstructing. It can be symbolic, where we find our ways to create solitude, or for some of us, it's very much physical. We walked out of church and now we are alone. So how can we take that opportunity to make it something meaningful, to help us unpack things that maybe we've been holding on to too long, where our beliefs was a symptom of deeper issues. And I know that's a deep, deep conversation, but oftentimes it's not just church we're deconstructing from. It's our entire lives, because then we start looking at the foundation of the things that we built, and we realize that a lot of it was built around things that not only not serve our highest good, it was built on a false narrative, something that we were supposed to be in order to be compliant to patriarchal structures. And in those structures, oftentimes we lose our power, we lose our voice, we relinquish it to other people to make them happy. And so those things have to be done in solitude. It doesn't mean they have to be done alone. That's different. Solitude means we create time where we can unpack these things or spend time on the things we're learning about ourselves. But maybe we have mentors. Maybe we have therapy. Maybe we figure out group time. Maybe we come into these lives where you're just looking at me through a camera and you can hear my voice and know that you're not alone. That there are many of us out here who have gone through the same thing. I want you, if you leave here, if you're that one person who's afraid to step in and comment, but you see me right now and you hear my voice, I want you to remember this, that the fastest growing sector still in the United States is the spiritual but not religious. People are still deconstructing at an alarming rate. We used to be primarily, in the 60s, it was like 90% Christian in this country. That is not true anymore. It's just not true. So can you continue to trust the journey and know that maybe the time and quiet is exactly what you need because you've never had that before? You've been in spaces where you had to be something that you truly weren't just to be accepted. And so maybe the quiet can be something else that will lead you to where you are. I mean, if we wanted to see the greatest teacher of that, when you look at some of the greatest wisdom keepers, including Jesus, they spent time in the spiritual wilderness, away from the noise, to spend time in that quiet. How else can we hear that inner knowing, that still small voice? We can't. If it's filled with the words of people, or we're being spoon-fed from a pulpit, we're going to continue to get spoon-fed. And maybe those aren't the words for us anymore. Maybe it is time for that spiritual reset. So yeah, it can be lonely, but sometimes that is where your power lies. There's a song in Christian contemporary music from 10th Avenue North called "This Is Where the Healing Begins." This is where the healing starts. When you come where you're broken within, the light meets the dark. And that's where we are. So I refuse to believe that loneliness cannot be empowering if that's what it takes to deconstruct. Do not fear it. Do not. And then believe that once you have healed and you've reclaimed your spirituality, because like I said, we often will hand that over to religion and say, here, you take this. I just don't want to think about it. Let church tell us how to worship. Tell us what to believe. Tell us what time to be at church. I'm just going to check out. Y'all just tell me, give me that checklist that tells me what I need to be a good Christian. We lose all that. We lose all that facade, and we spend a little bit of time out here desperately looking like, well, who's going to tell us how to be spiritual? Who's going to tell me how to do that? And then you realize you don't need that. You are the roadmap. It's always been a part of you. Did I put it? The proverbial Dorothy clicking her heels. You always had the ability to go home. You always had the ability to have this, but we turn it over and thinking that that's the right thing to do, and we're giving it back. It feels weird. Hold on, I got to tell him I'm a human. It feels weird. It feels foreign, but it's sacred. This has been so much fun, you beautiful souls. Seems so daunting, I know, Heather. Oh, wings, thank you. I used to fear loneliness, but thanks to you, I'm not fearing it anymore. Thank you, Heather. I'm so glad you're here. You know, it's been some heavy days, heavy days. Yesterday seemed like the culmination of that, from listening to Trump's Board of Peace to Andrew getting arrested to South Korea's former president getting sentenced to life for his attempted coup. And here we are in America still trying to make sense of everything that's going on, and we're still underreacting, but I think things are going to change. I think it is important that we come together and spend time on our spiritual empowerment. So I hope that that's what today gave you. I know that as we said in seminary, the teacher teaches what she needs to hear. And so I received out of today more than what I gave to you. And I mean that. I sincerely do. I love teaching. This is my favorite platform. And I am so honored for those of you who have joined on other platforms. Thank you so much. Don't forget, for all of you, I write over on Substack. I will be teaching from my book there very, very soon. I'm going to actually create a book reading group. So if you're not following me there, please do so. What time and days do you do your lives? Lady K, I'm hoping to be more consistent about what days they will be. Maybe we can announce them towards the end of the week. Right now, I'm not sure. How's that for honesty? But I'm going to try to become more consistent with that, I promise. Thank you, Kara. Join us over there. Please join us over there. I have a blessing that I've been giving you as we close this time out. Would you like that again today? Good, Heather. Come on over. All right, here we go. So for those of you who may be triggered by any type of blessing, any type of prayer, anything like that, thank you for my glasses. This is your chance to scroll on. I appreciate you being here for even the little time that we were together. Let's take a deep breath. If it feels right for you to close your eyes, you can do so as you listen to my words. May your deconstructing journey help you heal from Christian patriarchy. May your spirituality anchor you when the world feels unmoored, reminding you that your humanity is sacred and worth defending. May you be protected from systems that seek to silence, shame, or erase you, and may your spirit learn to recognize danger without being consumed by fear. May your anger sharpen into clarity, not cruelty, and may it move you toward justice rather than despair. May you remember that resistance is not separate from love, and that care for the vulnerable is a holy act. May you find strength in community, knowing you were never meant to survive this moment alone. May you rest when you need to, rise when it is time, and trust your own discernment about when to do each. May your life itself become a quiet refusal to comply with dehumanization, domination, and harm. May you be brave enough to stay soft in a world that rewards hardness, and wise enough to guard your tenderness fiercely. May you know that choosing goodness in dark times is an act of sacred defiance. May you reclaim your spirituality and define it in ways that is sacred to you and that honors your life's journey. May you invite only those into your inner circle who love you so unconditionally that they celebrate without limit and that they guard your heart. May you turn back to your life as a better version of yourself, walking fully in your authenticity. I believe that for you. Now go be who you are. May it be so. And so it is. Blessed be. Whatever you do, do not give up hope. Do not give up hope. Thank you all so very much. It has been an honor. Okay, YouTube, Facebook, Substack, thank you all so very much. This has been such an honor.